Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady, here with my co-host, JC.
Wendy Sellers, I am absolutely blown away by this series so far, and it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the thought that Mr. Norman put all this together. The legendary Mr. Norman Wolf put all this together in that beautiful mind so many years ago and has perfected it all the way up until now. People are just starting to write about this stuff now, but he's been preaching it for I don't know, he's not that old, so maybe 2 years, but you know what I mean?
more like a decade.
There it is.
Your words, not ours. Welcome, Norman. Thanks for being here. Hey, I wanted to jump into navigating change. We don't have any change going on in the workplace. No. Seems like things are changing literally by the week. But let's talk about navigating change and specifically process improvement, which to me seems like it's a never-ending project. We'll talk about some strategies for successful change adoption.
Well, we take a little different task, and in some regards, not too different than others. Again, organization is a person. So you ask the question, what does it mean for a person to change? When do they embrace change and when do they not? And one of the things I experienced in my own life as I've gone through multiple changes is there's a psychological process that goes on. Remember I mentioned one of the key elements about how a person creates results is the context we hold. The context is the set of beliefs that give meaning to life and make me able to navigate life a certain way. Okay? You can call this my map of reality. You can also call it my sense of identity. So when I'm asked to change, what I'm being asked to do is have a part of my sense of identity change. And that's very difficult for us. It feels like a little death or a big death.
Right.
How do you get people to change? Well, what I found is first and foremost, we have to honor the grieving process that goes on. So it's not an intellectual process. If we don't honor that, people get stuck.
And not to interrupt you, but the grieving process is different for everybody. So if you figure out mine, it's going to be different from JC and then another coworker. So that's hard. That's
hard. But there are certain elements of the grieving process that we can work with organizations, and we do, helping them through it. If you look at the grieving process generically, not necessarily the methodologies one would use, but they have certain elements of it. One is, I want to feel like who I have been, or the person who has passed away. The first thing we want to do is honor them, right? We have to feel there's a sense of value that this part of me that is no longer going to be there has some use, has had some value, right? Otherwise, I'm completely denying my existence up until now. So honoring the value that part of me has had is key to it. The second part of it is we have to allow the person to reframe their existing context. And one way to do that is what I call add on and expand. So, and I'll give you a concrete example in a second. But the notion is that I want to take what has been, reframe it to make it part of what is going to be, and adding on to that to make it even bigger. So it's an expansion of context. It's an expansion of who I am. I'll give you an example, a simple practical example. I had a client that was in the sole source supplier to the federal government for high-end cryptographic algorithms. Very specialized field. And the engineers viewed themselves. So the sense of identity was, we are the best. We create the best, most elegant solutions for this complex challenge. That worked fine. when there was no constraints on budget. They defined what they needed. They did their elegant solutions, and the business development folks got them the money from the government. And now they grew up and they entered into a field where they were being competitive, and the government wasn't doing sole source suppliers anymore. They were looking for cost-effective solutions. So they weren't winning any contracts anymore. They were losing more than they won. And of course, this is a bad thing for the success of the company. And they brought in process improvement folks and changes, they brought in different methodologies, proposals for, to the US government and all of that. They still weren't winning any proposals. When I came in and I was actually working with them on something else, so the CEO asked me to take a look at what I thought was going on. And when I discovered that the issue was the engineers refused to give up their elegant solution mindset. So I simply said, hey, look, this is a shorthand version. It took us a while to get there. But the end result was, hey, engineers, you think you're the best? Any engineer can create an elegant solution with unlimited resources.
Right. That's what I was thinking in my head.
Simple solution, right? It took us a few months to get there, not a lot of time. But we finally began to realize we challenged the engineers to create solutions within a constrained budget. Those are really the top engineers. And sure enough, they began winning all those proposals again. That's what I mean by reframing context. We went from, I'm a top-notch engineer because I developed elegant solution, to I am a top-notch engineer. That was important to their sense of identity, who can develop elegant solutions within a constrained budget. Took what was and expanded it. That's how you facilitate the change. You honor the past for who and what they are. You add on and expand it to fit the new needs of the organization or the individual. You do it on a personal level. You do it on an organizational level. It's the same thing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for that. And thanks everybody for listening to episode 4 of our 5-part series on human-centric strategies for extraordinary results. In our next episode, our final episode, we're going to cover redefining leadership in modern organizations. And just on a little side note here, we're always looking for feedback on the program. So if you have any specific topics that you're looking for, just send me an email, wendy@thehrlady.com. And one more thing, did you know that on January 1st, there is a new salary law? It already changed this year, but it's changing again. And there's a drastic increase in exempt salary. So we're doing a training on that on December 18th. So check out the AuroraTrainingAdvantage.com website for navigating the Fair Labor Standards Act overtime updates. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.